dystopian nightmare. But in fact, this is happening right now. So, bad guys potentially are winning, and AI is the new weapon of choice. So, welcome to Insights Fusion. Today, we are talking to Alec Crawford, an AI pioneer who's built neural networks at Harvard back in the 80s, spent decades on Wall Street managing risk at top firms, and now leads Artificial Intelligence Risk Incorporated, company dedicated to protecting business from growing threats and AI driven cyber attacks and financial fraud. In this episode, we will try to uncover why AI is the biggest security risk companies face nowadays, how hackers and other criminals are using AI to outmaneuver traditional cybersecurity, the hidden risks of AI adoption that businesses are simply ignoring, and what leaders need to do today to stay ahead of the coming AI security risks. So if you think AI is just automation, you might be just wrong. It's a new frontier for fraud, deepfakes, and cyber warfare. So welcome, Alec.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So what is it you do? Will you tell us a bit?
Well, I'm going to take you back to 1987. As a lifelong learner, as you mentioned, I was at Harvard building neural networks from scratch. Back then, we had things called expert systems for my computer science senior thesis. I was teaching computers to play poker and bet and bluff, and that was kind of fun. But I realized they just weren't powerful enough. Obviously, they are now. Poker bots are better than the best human player. And the biggest risk I really saw then was not landing a job after I graduated. so,
Oh no.
but I did get a job. So fast forward to today, as you mentioned, I spent decades in New York City at the big Wall Street firms, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank. Um, and the biggest risk, as you mentioned right now, is financial fraud, right? Especially for the banks. And so think about it. If fraud were a country, at 1 trillion with a T dollars a year, it would be the third largest in the world after the US and China, which is crazy, right? And since
But
COVID, we have seen trillions of dollars stolen. And honestly, the future is going to get tougher for companies that don't apply the right tech and have the right cybersecurity. So as companies roll out AI, they're exposing, as you mentioned, new unaddressed vulnerabilities to hackers, right? So it's not just the hackers using AI. If you have a new chatbot out there, whether it's internal or external, and it has access to your customer information, well, that's a new vulnerability that you need to protect. So, look, given my experience running risk management at Lord Abbott and overseeing cybersecurity at Zip Brothers Investments, places like that, my co founder, Frank Fitzgerald, and I have developed proprietary technology for cybersecurity, governance, regulatory compliance, risk management of Gen AI. And we provide, the world's best user experience for security teams and technology teams to accelerate
wow,
adoption of Gen AI and keep it safe.
interesting. Interesting. Sounds really serious.
Oh yeah,
Serious
very
technology.
serious stuff. Absolutely. I mean, I think, look, we haven't, that people have definitely been hacked by AI. AI is definitely a new attack vector. So far, we haven't seen it, front page news, Fortune 500 company, right? And that's when I think we're going to get a lot of phone calls, right? Right now, it's still kind of like, do the AI first, worry about that other stuff later, because there's still tons of pressure on CEOs to just get me some AI. The board, their
Mhm.
stakeholders, they go to the technology team and they say, just get me some AI. They don't say there may not even be a budget, right? They're not doing all the regular procurement process. They're not thinking about, oh, if we do AI, we need governance and risk management and to protect our customer information. And we need regulatory compliance and cybersecurity. Great example. Colorado passed a cybersecurity and AI law called the Colorado AI Act last July. Okay, but it didn't go
Oh,
into effect until February 1st, 2025. Now, most companies think, oh, that's Colorado, whatever. I don't have an office there. Doesn't matter. Any company with even one customer in Colorado is subject to the law. And there's literally 29 pages of things you're supposed to do if you do business in Colorado and you're using AI, right? So vast majority of companies don't even know this exists, but if you don't
wow.
comply, the fines can literally be millions of dollars, right? So companies have to figure this out fast.
Wow, impressive. It's really high chance to have customer there,
Oh yeah.
especially if you like B2C company. So there's like
Oh yeah.
guaranteed customer
Right.
in there.
Exactly. You're gonna have a customer there. What do you do? Just say people in Colorado aren't allowed to use my software? Like what? That's not gonna happen. Right? So,
No,
yeah, and it doesn't and it's also existing customers, right? So what do you do? You're gonna fire a bunch of customers
sure.
that live in Colorado? I don't think so.
No way.
Yeah. But
What
the
is it about? Could you tell a bit
yeah, so
what does
so
he highlight?
yeah, so Colorado, their AI Act really focuses on what's called high risk AI. So it's interesting because that's really how Europe has developed their AI rules. It's about what level of risk is it? If it's low risk, meaning hey, it helps me pick an ice cream flavor. Okay, well, there's not a lot of regulation, right? Other than keeping customer information safe, which is part of GDPR, right? But if you're doing
Yes.
something high risk, like medical care, banking, things like that, like you have to have all kinds of different protections in place. And really, both Colorado and the EU are focused on customer protection. So, for example, you got to protect their data. That's pretty obvious. But also, let's say you have AI helping grant loans, right? So your bank, your AI is helping you review documents and maybe look at credit scores, maybe predict whether someone's going to pay their loan back or how high the rate should be, things like that. A customer can come back to a bank and say, I was denied a loan. I think AI had something to do with that. I want a human
Mhm.
to review everything. And you're required to do it by law, right? You also
I
have to
see.
disclose to customers that you're using AI. So literally, there's 29 pages of things that you're supposed to do, or you can comply with the national framework, which is the National Institute of Science and Technology AI Risk Management Framework, and that's kind of a safe harbor. That's actually something that we do at Artificial Intelligence Risk. We do full compliance with the NIST AI Risk Management Framework from an automation standpoint and monitoring standpoint. So, look, if you're doing business in Colorado, you just need to figure this out, or you're going to wake up one day and have millions of dollars of fines and be super unhappy and maybe get fired, which would be bad, right? So,
Yes. Interesting. All right. Cool. Getting back to earlier days, 80s, 90s, uh, what was the biggest misconception about AI then and compared to misconceptions you see now? I wonder, like, since
yeah, good
you have
question.
experience.
Well, I think the biggest misconception then was really about limitations, right? So we saw that I'll give you my example, right? I'm building neural networks to play poker. They got to an average human. I figured, hey, with more computing power, they can be great, but maybe they won't beat the best human for a very long time, right? And I think advances in computer science now allow computers to be pretty much the best at everything: Go, chess, poker, whatever, backgammon. And part of that was in large language models, for example, was the invention of the transformer, right? Which really took um, neural networks to the next level and allowed things like optical, recognition of things like, is this a cat or not a
Mhm.
cat? Which cat is it? Things like that. So basically, the thing that people didn't see was the ability of new software to allow new and much broader capabilities. and also to ingest, for in the case of large language models, literally everything on the internet, right? I think
Right.
there are a few kind of big misconceptions today. I think the largest one that I see, you remember the Google engineer last year is like, my AI is conscious, it's talking to me. Like, no, it's not. We're now in a phase that's called statistical AI. These tools, and they are tools, not conscious beings, literally predict what the next token or word is. That's it. They do a really good job at that. But similar to you writing at your computer, writing an email, what are you thinking about? Well, what's the next word I'm going to write? And you might think about,
Hmm.
the next paragraph or a theme or whatever. But that's basically what large language models are doing. They're not thinking about it. They're statistically predicting it. And the weights on the different transformers inside a large language model are what determine, like, does it do a good job or bad job? That's it. The size and the weights. That's it. There's no other kind of secret sauce behind that. And that's why, many of these companies kind of protect that and keep it secret because it is kind of the secret sauce. Not that it can't be backed out. So what's interesting about uh, DeepSeek, there are two super interesting things there. One is they basically admitted that they cheated during training because they basically used OpenAI to train DeepSeek, right? Like, well, of course you're going to save
Hmm.
lots of time and money if you basically effectively it's a way of copying a model or stealing their weights a little bit. And the other thing going on there obviously is every time you use DeepSeek, all the information used is going back to China. It's going back to multiple places. It's going back to
Hmm.
China. It's going back to the UK to basically something fronted by Alibaba. Like this is the information that I hear. Who knows what's actually correct? But yeah, it's not great. I don't know any serious company in the US that's going to end up, using DeepSeek just for security reasons, right? I mean, kids are using it, whatever, but be very, very careful with any data you put into DeepSeek.
How about self-deployed, on premise, like on
Yeah,
Olama,
I mean, it is
stuff like
trying to
that?
get out there, right? It's trying to break through your firewall and get information out
Really?
there. Yeah, I mean, you can obviously look, you can take that very seriously and really try to protect yourself and probably be successful. But if it's an option between like, oh, I'm going to use NVIDIA's latest Llama model versus DeepSeek, like I'm going to pick, NVIDIA's because I'm pretty sure Jensen Huang's not messaging himself the details of your bank account data, right? So, yeah, people have to be very careful. Look, we definitely advocate for companies on-prem or private cloud deployment of large language models, right? Super easy with Llama. Obviously, OpenAI, you can deploy to Azure, and very soon you'll be able to deploy it to other places. That's huge, right? Having the model, the data, and frankly, our software inside your firewall to do what I call AI GRCC or governance, risk, compliance, and cybersecurity is critical if you're a company, right? If you don't have it, eventually you're just going to have a huge problem, as what we talked about earlier. But why make your life more complicated by literally using a model that is trying to exfiltrate data out of your company?
Exactly.
That sounds dumb, right? And I think that the panic around DeepSeek when we saw a bunch of stocks drop in price, I don't think was totally warranted. Like I don't think I didn't hear any of the big model providers come out in their earnings call and say, "Hey, guess what? We're gonna cut our NVIDIA chip orders in half because of DeepSeek." Like that ain't happening, right? I know. Look, I think you always need to look at the world and the investing world with carefully, and things can go too far for sure. I'm not super worried about DeepSeek taking over, U.S. large language models.
Yeah, when I had those news, I didn't rush to sell my Nvidia
Yeah,
stocks. I kept it,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it won't be that bad. Recently I've been hearing that OpenAI are thinking to make free GPT-5? Been hearing these things to
Yeah,
compete
absolutely.
to DeepSeek.
I've seen a bunch of stuff about that, and I think the plan is to tier things, right? So in other words, here's your free version. It's not that powerful. We limit how many queries you can do, things like that. And then the next tier is, better. And then above that, they start having tiers that allow agents, autonomous agents, and things like that, right? So that's
Hmm.
what I would do too, right? Just tier it. You want to draw people in the free version and then get them to pay. Look, they're still losing, as far as I know, because it's a private company, tons of money, right? Like
Oh
they're
yeah.
not making money on this, right? That can only go on, for so long, right? I don't know how many people out there were there in the days the internet bubble. Like I was at Morgan Stanley. I watched the bubble blowing from the inside, and there are a couple kind of funny stories about that. One was there are internet companies that would deliver anything to you in a bunch of cities, including New York City, for free. So you could literally buy a pack of gum and a bike messenger would come and drop it off for the guy sitting in the office next to you for free. Right now, you're paying for the gum. All right, that's $1 or whatever. But the
Hmm.
delivery is free. Obviously, completely unsustainable, right? Like, how are you gonna? It's like
True.
it's not possible. That's kind of what's happening with some of these large language models, where they're losing so much money every day that we know it's just not sustainable forever for them to do that. The other kind of funny story from that period of time is, I get into a sedan with a driver, right? I'm on my way to back from a business dinner, and he goes, "I'm really upset." I go, "Upset about what?" He said, "Well, I just gave my last passenger all these great stock tips, and he didn't thank me." I'm like, "Oh, that's terrible. I'm so sad. What were they?" He goes, "Oh, Lucent, and I don't know all these other, whatever, internet bubble stocks." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that." I said, "Do you ever short stocks?" And he goes, "What's that?" and I like,
Oh.
and I got in the next day and sold everything. I'm just like, "All right, this is it." Like, this is when your driver is upset because no one's thanking him for his stock tips, it's time to get out. So better lucky
Yeah.
than smart.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, interesting. Uh, so mentioned AI agents. Uh, what's your take on security and AI agents? For me, it seems like there's a huge risk that they kind of can go rogue or do stupid things, especially if you connect them to email, to client database, to your, like, let's say, Confluence, everything, That sounds
Yeah.
very, very on the edge.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. And look, I think there are first of all, let's define, agents, right? Because people are using it all over the place. Like I define an agent as an AI with a specific purpose that's connected to specific data, right? And there are different levels, right? There's an agent that you trigger, right? That you're at a command line, you say, summarize my emails. Okay, great. Goes and summarizes your emails. It's obviously connected to your emails, which most you can't just go to ChatGPT on the web and do that
Hmm.
because it's not connected to your emails. The second type thing, and again, these are my own definitions. I'm sure there's plenty of them out there. Is something that I'll call semi-autonomous agent, right? So what it does is you go tell it to do something, and it connects the dots, right? So it's not just checking your email. It might go to a bunch of websites. You might say, "Hey, book me a flight to Lithuania from New York," right? And it goes and gets prices, and it comes back and says, "Hey, Alec, here's the 3 best flights. I know you prefer nonstop. Do you want me to book this?" You say, "Yes." Then it takes you to the site, and you put in your own credit card number and pay for the flight, but it's all kind of ready to go. So it's not doing everything for you, but it's
Hmm.
doing questions and answers. It's kind of behaving like a kind of a junior assistant where you don't completely trust that person, right? You want to see the price. You don't want to hand them off your credit card. And then there's fully autonomous agents, which is kind of what you were hinting at, which is they're just out there doing stuff, almost like your employee, right? Good example of that might be an agent that looks at every email that's getting sent from a firm looking for, let's say, legal and regulatory compliance violations and say, "Oh my god, there's
Oh.
a compliance violation here." And then it sends a note to the human to review it who says, "Yeah, that's real or that's not real." That's an autonomous agent. It's running all the
Interesting.
time. It's doing a specific job. It's reporting back to someone, right? That's an autonomous agent. It doesn't even need to report back to someone technically. It could create reports or just kind of do its own thing. And I think what might be a little scary, as you're pointing out, is what if that kind of gets loose, right? And is
We'll
in a bunch
take
of
initiative, you
places,
know.
right? And like, who's in charge, right? Like, all of a sudden, it's sending all these emails, like, "Hey, everybody, there's all these compliance violations. Like, where is this thing, and how do we shut it down?" Right? Like, that's
Mhm.
gonna, eventually become a problem. I mean, people have been talking about a version of OpenAI which wouldn't erase itself, and I discount that to a large degree. But look, this is going to be a problem at some point, right?
Mhm. Right. Interesting. So I've even seen a job ad where the company was hiring junior developer, which was supposed to be AI agent. So I
Wow,
think
wow.
that's like a next level
That's
already.
next level. That might be for PR, but going back to the security part, right? I think that first of all, AI agents as SaaS, you need to be super careful about, right? Like if I've got some SaaS product that's supposed to book me flights and I'm getting my credit card, like I have no idea where that's going, right? I would be pretty cautious about that. As an individual or a company, but as a company, like I want everything on my private cloud, right? I want everything inside my firewall, including my agents, right? You've got to secure your agents. They've got access to customer data, credit card data, bank data. Like that's
Hmm.
insane to have that, outside your firewall. If someone said, "Hey, let's take a bunch of unencrypted customer data and put it on the internet," you'd be like, "That's crazy." Right? Kind of the same thing, right? If you're letting agents run around with that, right? So, one of the things we do is encrypt PII before it goes to AI, and not just encrypt, but what's called tokenize, where a big thing in the U.S. obviously social security numbers. You're supposed to protect it, like don't lose it because someone can apply for credit in your name, all that bad stuff, and steal your identity.
Hmm.
So one of the things we do is we tokenize it. So if someone literally, even if it's in a file or someone types it in, we'll actually change it so it's a fake number, right? And then when it comes back from the AI, we change it back to the real number, right? So we basically put a placeholder in
Interesting.
and then replace it when it comes back from the AI. So the AI never sees the real number. The human may even not even be aware that their confidential information was obfuscated or tokenized in this case before it came back. Stuff like that's going to be super super important for individuals and for business. Like you have all these different layers of protection around your PII. Should it just be blocked? Right? Should it be redacted? Should it be tokenized? Should it be allowed? Right? Like, and you have to think very carefully about your use cases, how many people can use it, where the data is going. Is it really necessary to transmit an actual PII or is something else okay? This is going to be uh, super important questions to ask and answer as you think about more broadly about AI governance. So, what I mean by that is, what are you going to do with AI and not do with AI yourself or with a company, right? So, I've got friends who are
Mhm.
like, I don't let AI bots in my meetings. That's kind of interesting, right? Um,
Oh, really?
the second thing to think about there is, well, which models you're going to use for what, right? So as I just said, like we're not even letting our customers use DeepSeek because we think there are too many risks. We just don't want to get involved, right? They want to use DeepSeek on their own. That's their choice. I think it's a bad idea. My CTO thinks it's a bad idea. We're just
Hmm.
keeping it out of our ecosystem. And then you've got to think about uh, the individuals at your company. Look, if you have three people, whatever, everyone's got access to AI. You've got 1,000 people. We got different departments. You got the call center, you got the C-suite, you got the CFO, you got salespeople. They all need totally different things from AI, right? And totally different access to your company's data. The CFO needs access to books and records and earnings. Salespeople need access to customer data, prospects, things like that, marketing materials. Each team should have their own groups of AI. And that's important for a
Hmm.
couple reasons. One is you don't want people seeing things they shouldn't see, right? In other words, we've had cases last year where a big company onboards AI, let's say Copilot, and then the first day someone says, "How much money does my boss make?" and gets the answer, right? Because someone's dropped a spreadsheet in the wrong folder or whatever, and just AI is just doing a good job searching everything. And or when a hacker gets in there, first thing they do is they say, "Well, what credentials do I have access to? Show me all my emails to the CEO," right? Like, basically, where's the most important customer data, right? Like, tell me about the structure of this database. And all of a sudden, within 5 minutes, like you're
Wow.
hacked, right? That used to take criminals, days to figure out where's the important stuff, right? Now they can find it in 5 seconds. So governance is super important, right? You want to limit what each piece person can do. So if an individual gets compromised, the hacker only has access to a few things. And then obviously from a cybersecurity standpoint, look, it's not a matter of if, but when you get hacked and then detecting that on day zero, right? Is someone exfiltrating data? Has someone used a prompt injection on your AI to try
Hmm.
to download its training data or whatever, right? Like that's one of the things we do is day zero detection of AI hacking. Who else is doing that? Right? And if you haven't figured that out and someone has access to your AI for 2 weeks, like they're gonna have everything, right? By the time they're done.
Definitely. Interesting. I I've seen a lot of videos where guys and girls showing how to config N8N or like Zapier and similar tools to do various things, like an AI agent, stuff like that. And I've seen multiple examples, and one got stuck is with the automated healthcare clinic to ask for feedback, and if the feedback was good, send like a Google Business link, leave us stars,
Mm,
stuff like that. If they're happy, it kind of knows. That seems completely bad idea for me, because I'm pretty sure it's like just an open AI calls to external service. It's Zapier. It's again third party already. It's healthcare data, which is also crazy. So many things. That's also how
yeah.
would you see that?
Yeah, that sounds terrible. I mean, I think part of this is about education, right? There was an article in the Atlantic magazine 2 months ago about people who thought they were having private conversations with ChatGPT that then became public, right? So the original kind of light bulb moment, I think, was when Samsung engineers uploaded code and said, "Please help me with my code," and that became public, right? But after that, individuals are having very personal conversations about someone wondering whether he should get divorced from his wife, someone with a serious medical problem, like having a conversation with AI. They literally became public, right? Like published in the Atlantic magazine, right? Like really, really bad stuff. And so what people don't realize, including some people in corporate land, is look, if you're sending stuff outside your firewall, like it's at risk, right? It may be really at risk, like it's going to get exposed immediately, or it may be peripherally at risk, meaning, well, someone really needs to hack OpenAI or do some of kind of hack or decrypt something to get access to your data. But you want to deeply understand that. And there are probably also unknown risks, right? Like that we don't know about with AI, and the more private you keep it, and the less confidential information you feed it, the better off you are, right? The safer you are. And in some ways, one of the analogies to cybersecurity and having kind of that last layer of defense and depth around your large language model and your AI, it's analogous to you've got 10 houses on a street. They all have lots of nice stuff for them. A robber goes down the street. Three of them have alarms. The
Mhm.
rest don't. Well, which house are they going to rob? The house without the alarm, right? It's not that they can't get into the house with the alarm. It's just a pain. Go pick the low hanging fruit if you're a bad guy, right? Um, and I think that um, for better or worse, with AI as a bad guy, there's a lot of low hanging fruit, right? So you go back a few years ago, let's go back a really long time ago. Everybody knows, or almost everybody knows, about the Nigerian prince scam, right? Hi, I'm a
Mhm.
Nigerian prince. Like I gotta help me get my money, right? And people get basically conned, right? Like literally everybody knows that now. There are still kind of similar things like going on, right? And the way people would figure it out is like, oh, they're not even spelling my name right here. This is obviously a scam. Well, guess what? Using AI to generate those letters and emails, the language is perfect, you know?
Won't be any mistakes
Yeah, there won't
anymore.
be any mistakes. So that's just an example of how, and now you can personalize it, right? So, phishing emails are going to get better and better and better to the point where, oh, look, I just got an email from Vigandis that, oh, we talked last week on his podcast, right? Click this link to listen to the podcast. Oh, I've been phished, right? Like,
Mm.
so you're going to have to be super, super careful about that. And we haven't quite gotten to the point where AI is caught up to the point where it can help me say, "Hey, that email from Vagandas is not real," right? So we're getting there, but we're still a little bit behind, I think, as a society. I'm not saying
Mm.
you or me personally or our companies. Um, the other thing, obviously, which people worry about, but is very, very unusual, is the true deep fake, like, you know, but it's really a deep fake calls my CFO and says, wire $1 million somewhere. And they go, okay, Alec, and they wire the money, right? Like that's very rare, right? Because it's hard to pull off. It takes tons of work. You need to have lots of information about the company, like, oh, we need to make sure the CEO's traveling, things like that. So it's obviously high risk, high reward, and very difficult. Super, super rare. Look, not that we should worry
Interesting.
about it, but it's not happening every day.
I actually seen today on TikTok an ad. I think the app is called Captions. So it's for TikTok's, app that's kind of nice, and it has AI. And they were promoting that you can clone yourself.
Hmm.
So you need to read a text into the app, film yourself for like few minutes, like the specific text that you need to read, and then you just write the text and it generates the video of you saying those words that you want.
Yeah, that's there. Absolutely. Yeah. So you've got obviously everyone's gonna have to be super careful. But again, like I think doing that kind of live, it's hard. It's doable, but it's hard. I mean, it's gonna get worse, right? I'm actually surprised that in recent political elections there haven't been more kind of deep fakes of politicians, right? I would have, I'm happy it didn't happen, but I was definitely um, concerned about it. The other thing that's happened is obviously kind of automation of communications. I mean, like who doesn't get like 10 LinkedIn connections and 20 emails a day from people you'd have no idea who they are. And so the not deep fake, but just the fake is someone scraping LinkedIn, someone announces they got a new job, and they immediately figure out who the CEO of the company is and text or
Mhm.
email them saying, "Hey, it's the CEO. Could you send me $1,000 in Apple gift cards? I'm traveling, really need help." And look, 99% of people are like, I've heard of this gift card scam thing, but some people fall for it, right? They're like, "Oh, I just got hired. The CEO's asking me for a favor. This is so great." Like meanwhile, it is not. It's not the CEO, right? They're never going to ask you to go get gift cards, right? And this is a very persistent scam. And why is it? Because it works. Not on everybody, but it's basically free to do or costs
That's true.
pennies. And if you even have one out of 1,000 people send you $1,000, like the scammers won, you know? So
And you
exposing
can really
these and talking
automate that.
about them is actually important, right? So people realize, oh, gift card scams. Everybody knows what it is. Like Nigerian prince. We have seen that. We've seen that movie, right?
Yeah, I'm gazillionaire. How many emails like that I've got? I never taken, but
Yeah.
if I would sum all the money they promised me,
Yeah. You'd
um,
be a very wealthy man. That's right.
yes, in that world. All right. So mentioned. So you grabbed the idea that we cannot really uh, understand, or AI cannot really understand if the email is fake, really, or not. So cybersecurity is probably still more reactive than proactive, like and in prevention mode. So
Hmm.
you first have to burn, and then cybersecurity comes and patches that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I'm not saying AI is not capable of it. I'm just saying that it's not really set up yet. I could conceive of an email scanning agent that doesn't look for traditional cybersecurity red flags, right? So a traditional cybersecurity red flag might be a link to a site in Russia or something like that, right? Or
Mhm.
China, where you're like, ooh, this is probably a scam. You can literally just push that to the spam folder and say, this looks like it's a scam. But let's say there is no link or the link looks innocuous or whatever, you could still take an email agent and say, is this asking for money or gift cards? Does it have an urgent tone? Like, have we received emails from this person before? Things like that, and just grade it. Like, I think it's still tough to say 100% this is a scam, but you could do green, yellow, red. Right? Green, someone
Mhm.
internal, you verified their email address, they're talking about a meeting. Who cares? Whatever. Yellow, and then all the way on the other side is red, like, okay, this is linked to a known spammer site in Russia. It's asking for gift cards. Like, clearly this is bad. And then yellow is somewhere in the middle where it doesn't really know, right? It's not sure.
Mhm.
Um, and you could put those in the main folder, the other folder, and the spam folder, and that would or you could put a header at the top of them saying, like, this looks like a scam, right? Or not only did this come from outside your organization, this looks like a scam, right? And then people could
Right.
look at it with extra caution because right now we're basically relying on individuals' judgment completely, right? Whether they're going to click on a link or not, right? If instead at the top of the email is like, this looks like a scam, they're not going to click on the link, right? So, or just
Definitely.
delete the links, whatever, right? Like, we've taken the links out of this because this looks like a scam, right? Doesn't sound that hard.
Mhm. Interesting times to live in. We'll see where it leads us. That we might
Yeah.
trust nobody anymore at all, or maybe we'll have more live meetings, without computers. So you'll need to be able to touch. Okay, that's a real person.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's actually very funny. That's actually very funny. I think you're right. I think that we're going through a phase right now, and I'll tell you another story. So I went to a meeting in Boston, and the head of the department comes out, shakes my hand. I've got one of my co-founders there, shakes his hand. And we sit down in this, maybe 12-person conference room, and there's supposed to be four other people there. I'm like, all right, where's everybody? Now, they didn't realize it was an in-person meeting, so they're all on Zoom. Yeah, maybe one of them's at home, but some of them are literally like down the hall in their offices, and they didn't even walk down the hall to come to the meeting. I'm like, what has happened to people, right? And I think that is going to change, right? Where people are going to go back to wanting that human interaction. Maybe not 5 days a week, but enough to show up at a meeting or go out to dinner or whatever and make some true human connections. I mean, I think there are definitely some young people today that when you say, so if you'd asked me when I was a kid, how many friends do you have? Like, oh, 10, 20 friends. Yeah, we hang out. What do you do? We play baseball. We play games, we hang out at each other's houses, whatever. You ask a kid today how many friends they have, they go, "Oh, I got 1,000 friends on Facebook." Well, how many friends in real life do you have? Oh, three. You know,
Yeah.
very, very different, right? And what's important for people to understand is, okay, maybe those three friends in real life are your friends on Facebook, and that's the same thing. But the other 997 are not really your friends, right? You don't hang out with them. They don't do stuff with them. They may not even be who they say they are, right? Like, and everybody on social media is just telling you all the fabulous stuff that happens to them, not the bad things that happen to them every day and the troubles they're having most of the time, right? So it just presents obviously a
Right.
quite distorted version of reality.
Interesting. Talking about young people, uh, so I've read an interesting thought. So we were talking about only opportunities, what AI can bring good, how it can help, how it can optimize. And I never thought actually about the young generation, like the 13, 14-year olds, students in universities. And some people are now talking, there was like a small research done, and they talked to those students that some deliberately avoid ChatGPT, so they would force themselves to use brain to write essays, to do the homework, all of that stuff. And other who use ChatGPT eventually start to, think that they are getting dumber because they finding it harder and harder to focus and come up with an idea what to write on, even though they're getting way better grades compared to those other guys. And there's
Yeah,
probably a huge danger here also, right?
yeah. Well, it goes back to, the 2000s. There was an article called "Is Google Making Us Stupid?" Right? And it's the same thing as is AI making us stupid? Answer is totally yes, right? Like if you're using it all the time and relying on it for things. There's something called the Claude Boys, and they're a bunch of boys that use Claude, have it on their phone. Obviously, it responds very quickly, and they ask Claude before they make any decisions and do what Claude says. What color shirt should I wear today, Claude? Red. Okay, right. And that's very interesting because one of the um, one of the hypotheses around the human brain is there's only a certain amount of attention span you have during a day, right? Whether it's writing something or doing work or paying attention to meetings or making decisions. So each decision you don't have to make is a future decision you'll be able to make. So as an example, some people are like, I wear the same thing every day. That's just a decision I don't have to make. And that allows me to make more decisions later in the day at like work or whatever. Now I don't know how valid that is, but maybe if I use Claude to make my dumb decisions like what shirt color, like I'll have lots of bandwidth to make important decisions like should I hire this person or not, or is this a good client, or should I go to this conference?
And then one time you will ask Claude to help you, and then won't be able to make those decisions anymore in the future.
Yeah, who knows? Who
Hmm.
knows? Yeah. So super, super interesting, all these things that are happening. But look, I think, as we think in the future, a lot of people claim they know what AI is going to do in a year. I have no idea what it's going to do in a year and how much more powerful it is. And 10 years from now, we none of us have any idea because right now we're very focused on what? Large language models. They're hot. They're interesting. They're doing cool stuff. They're going to be very capable. They're going to help people. They may even replace some people in their jobs. 10 years from now, it's not going to be large language models. It's going to be something different. And if it's different and people are using it, it's going to be more powerful. And the probability that we get artificial general intelligence, you know, credit to Ray Kurzweil, the singularity is near. Like he thought of this a very, very long time ago. A lot of people are like, I'm not so sure. Like I think what we're approaching the point where, at least for me, I think it's a near certainty that we'll get to AGI. It's only a matter of time, right? Is it, 10 years from now or 1,000? Like, I don't know. Is it likely to be in my lifetime? Not really sure, but it's going to happen, right? And if we don't get AGI, we'll get something that looks and smells a lot like AGI, and at a minimum will fool tons of people into thinking, oh, this is AGI, right? And the catch, of course, is once you have AGI, the first thing you do is go build a smarter version of yourself. And then we got super intelligence on the planet that's not a human, and is basically an alien intelligence because it's not a human. And we better pray that its interests are aligned with humans, or bad things will happen. Number one, and number two,
Hmm.
and I've been saying this for years now: never give AI the nuclear codes.
Definitely. And it will also be connected to internet, which human already cannot do, you know. So it's like at the same time in all places, knows it all, almost, like really, really superior being.
Right?
We will be like
Yeah.
an ant to them.
Yes, we got to be careful and make sure that we control that process. And you go back to last year when Elon Musk and other people were saying, "Hey, let's pause AI development for 6 months." Just not plausible, right? Because the rest of the world keeps going. China keeps going on AI development, and I don't think democracies can afford for an autocracy, or uh, a country that is uh, very averse to democracy to win that race, right? Because they're not just implications for work or government. There are huge military implications around
Hmm.
having AGI, right? We just can't afford to lose that, as the free world can't afford to lose that race.
Interesting. I think you're on the board of Global AI Ethics Institute,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Uh, so what's the ethical dilemma in AI that keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Look, the biggest one right now, that doesn't have to do with any specific country or company or person, it has to do with the world, which is uh, how AI differs around the world, right? So in the US, lots of people have access. We talked about the free version of ChatGPT 5. Um, People are using it for work, for school. That's going to continue, right? It's going to soon and definitely eventually raise the living standard in the US because it increases productivity. It's just math and economics, right? Well, what about other countries that don't have access to this? You know, does every country in South America have the same access to AI that we do? No, they don't, right? Are they implementing AI at the same pace as the US and Europe? No, right? So all these different kind of wealth gaps, and not just between people, but between countries, could really accelerate with AI, and that could be a real problem, right? So that's obviously one thing. The other is obviously, super obvious one is AI in war, and I think the institute is. I think there is a paper that's either been published or is about to be published around that. That the institute is has or will put on the website, things like that. So, and obviously, look, there's tons of ethical decisions there, and the problem is there. It's kind of a race to the bottom, right? Because if you always want a human in the loop on decisions about things that might kill people, uh, that will always be slower than another system that does not require a human in the loop, right? So again, I think Geneva Convention is out there saying lots of things you should do and not do. Yeah, countries do and don't do those, but we kind of need a Geneva Convention for AI, right? Like, here's what we allow, here's what we
Hmm.
not allow, right? Um, and that a number of people have brought this up, and it's way more complicated than I've just said. But nothing's really not that much has happened there yet, and I think that's going to be super important over the next few years to figure that out and get uh, get the world on the same page. Now, the problem with that, even compared to, for example, nuclear weapon disarmament, is nuclear weapons you can run around and count them. You got to figure out what's going on with satellite images. Can't
Yeah,
really
it's
do that with
feasible.
AI, right? Like I can have I could take this office and put a bunch of servers in here and run one of the most sophisticated AIs on the planet doing all kinds of stuff no one else would know in the world, right? I could just unplug that from the internet. Nobody knows, right? So that's going to be very hard to police, shall we say? So
Well, I can imagine you would probably could track electricity consumption. You can fly with a drone that looks for drug farms, with
yeah,
heat
good luck. Good luck with
sensors, all
that.
that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, not gonna work. Yeah, no, this is look, it goes back to, Biden's executive order on AI, which I believe Trump struck down, had a bunch of stuff about basically not allowing bad guys to use the base models. And my first comment when it
Hmm.
came out was it's kind of too late, right? These are open source models. If they downloaded them last week to their, nexus of
Hmm.
crime, like it's too late. They already have them. Like, are you kidding? Like, it's not like all these models need to run on, you know, Azure or AWS
Hmm.
Bedrock. You can run them on. I was running Llama 2 on my desktop last year, right? Like,
Takes a
it's
bit longer, but eventually
yeah,
it
it'll work
spits out
eventually.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
interesting. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. It was really insightful and really interesting conversation. Uh, for those who might want to find you a chat about security and how you could help them, could you maybe
Sure,
share where they can
sure.
find
You can
what
go
they
to
can
our
ask you to help with?
Sure. You can go to our website, which is AIC for corporate risk.com. You can also go to LinkedIn or other social media and look up Artificial Intelligence Risk Inc. or me, Alec Crawford, and track me down. I've also got my own podcast called AI Risk Reward, where we talk about the risks and rewards of using AI, whether personally or professionally. So, you guys, thanks for having me on the show. This has been awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. Definitely. Um, Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. See you in the next episode and take care. All right. Right on
Awesome.
time. A
Awesome.
few
Thank
minutes left.
you. Yeah, thanks. I literally someone